Howdy, it's Jim Morado. I'd like to read you a quick paragraph from a brochure I picked up at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa, and that's where we're at today. But this paragraph from their brochure, I think, might explain to you why I'm here, in case you haven't figured that out by now. American music was changed forever following the original Winter Dance Party on February 2nd, 1959, held at the Surf Ballroom. A plane chartered by Buddy Holly, J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson, and Ritchie Valens on its way to the next performance in Moorhead, Minnesota, crashed 5 miles north of Clear Lake, killing the pilot. The three rock and roll legends. That's just one of the legendary events in rock and roll. If you're young, you might not have heard that story. If you're a little bit more mature, you probably are familiar with that story. That actually happened before my time, but there was the Don McLean song that I think everybody knew that really conveyed the emotion of that moment. My mom actually told me she remembers that happening. Right now, we're actually inside of the Surf Ballroom. It's standing in front of the stage where that concert took place, and this is such a beautiful theater. It's still being used today for concerts. I was looking at some of the shows they've had, and they've had actually everybody come through there you can imagine. There's portraits of the three performers from that night. And yeah, this is just so spectacular. This would be a great venue, to see a 50s or a 60s act especially. I would love to sit in one of those booths, even though it's a little bit farther from the stage than the tables and the floor. I just think it'd be a cool experience setting in those very retro booths. This almost makes me think of Happy Days. It is such a scene right out of the 50s with the little jukebox boxes on the tables there, and yeah, this is just a really awesome throwback venue. I was a little nervous as we walked through here. You'll have to forgive my camera work, but I know that I was shaking a little bit as I filmed this. I know it almost sounds cliche to say this, but it was haunting. I mean, you're in here and they're piping in, kind of some slow 50s music, very lightly. It's a very dreamlike experience to be standing here. And as you can see, we're pretty much the only people there. There were a few people working on the particular day we stopped by. They pretty much left us alone and just let us explore the ballroom on our own. Yeah, this is something special. And, we arrived in Clear Lake, Iowa. This is early September 2020. And this was on our way to South Dakota. We realized on our road trip that if we routed things the right way, we would find ourselves here in Clear Lake, Iowa. And of course, this is a bit of a pilgrimage as a fan of music. This is definitely something I've wanted to do for some time. This is a little side room that they have kind of off of the ballroom. It's kind of a bar/music museum, and there's pictures, signed photos, signed instruments of various people who have played the Surf Ballroom. There's a Gene Simmons bass guitar, by the way, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. That seems kind of like maybe a bit of a loud kind of concert for this particular venue. And I actually asked someone who worked there at the Surf, how did it go with Gene Simmons? What kind of a show was that? And they told me, I think confidentially, that it did not go very well. But yeah, so everybody has played the Surf, and this is even if you're not familiar with Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and Ritchie Valens, this is just a cool place to stop to check out all of their posters and guitars. You'll be seeing in a little bit there's a lot of memorabilia from from that famous concert back in 1959. I'll probably won't mention too much of it. You can kind of look and see what it is. There's some newspaper stuff and some personal items too. It's the kind of stuff that makes your hair stand up. But yeah, this is just a cool place to stop, even if you're not familiar with that event back in 1959. So yeah, we walked in here on this particular, I think it was a Saturday morning. There's a box. They ask for a $5 donation, but there's nobody there policing it. If you wanted to stop by and not make that $5 donation, I think you could, but you'd be wrong if you did that. This place deserves your $5 donation. In fact, I mean, this is, if they were selling tickets for $15-20 to come in here and just look around, I would gladly pay that. They made quite a bit of money off of me in their gift shop. I had to buy several things. One of the cool things that they sell, I love relics. And for $10, you can buy about a 1-inch cubed piece of the old wooden floor. They renovated the floor at some point, and you can actually buy a small piece of the old floor. And that was something I definitely had to purchase, along with some guitar picks and some stickers and some postcards. We sent a lot of our friends postcards from here. Yeah, again, more great memorabilia from people who've played here. I mentioned that my mom said she remembered hearing about this, about the airplane crash, and it was pretty heavy for her at the time. She was a teenager. I also picked up a book. I bought this after we got home from visiting the Surf, but I bought The Day the Music Died, the last tour of Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Ritchie Valens, by Larry Lamer. I believe it's Larry Lamer, maybe Larry Lemer. Great book. I just finished it. It was one book that, I don't want to say I couldn't put it down, but I couldn't put it down. It's really a good telling of what happened, with those three rock stars, kind of their short lives leading up to the Winter Dance Party, the Surf Ballroom, and that tragic plane crash, then also the aftermath. I'll probably talk more about this book I'm going to post another video of us going out to the crash site, so I'm probably going to talk a little more about the book during that video, but it's a really good book. And I wish I had it before this trip, but we kind of planned this trip last minute, and our Iowa stop was somewhat of a last minute stop too. Yeah. Anyway, so the Surf is, it's pretty much wide open. They kind of let us roam around the place. There's no staff there hassling you or trying to keep things orderly. And we saw a few other couples kind of trickle in before and after us. And I think everybody that walks in there, I'm sure that they're just in awe. This is almost a bit of a holy place, especially if you're a rock fan. And they give you a little map of the venue so you can kind of walk around and see what's what. The stage, of course, really kind of blew my mind. And, you imagine that particular concert back in 1959, I believe. I think they had maybe a couple thousand people at that show. I know it says in the book, I think most of the Winter Dance Party shows had, I want to say, under a couple thousand. So, really, if you go to concerts, that's a pretty small show. Tickets, I want to say, were around $1. But, in one of the parts of the book, the author mentions how there was like an autograph table where you could get autographs from the performers. And just how great and informal is that. I know I've been to some small venue shows, and I like to try to get autographs when I can, and meet the performers. Usually if it's a couple thousand type venue, there's a good chance, they might be out at a merch table before or after the show. Especially if there's an opening act or something, there's a good chance you can get an autograph. But how exciting would it have been to be at one of these shows and to, get your record signed or even, again, in the book that I mentioned, there was a girl who had the performers sign the inside of her popcorn bucket, and I thought that's pretty cool. I love these on the wall. I love these old postcards too, by the way, and old matchbooks. I think those are always great. I mentioned the gift shop a moment ago. There was a really nice fellow working in there the day we were here, and I ended up talking to him for quite a while. I think he said he volunteered there and was just happy to be a part of it. And I thought that was pretty cool. He mentioned, I asked him if there were many people in the Clear Lake, Iowa area who were at that show back in 1959. And he said, sure, there's still people in the area that were actually at that show. But he said, if everybody that came in and told him they were at that show, if all of those people were actually at the show, there would have been about 200,000 people at that show. And of course, that's always the case. Yeah, and yeah. Well, I right there you can see into the gift shop a little bit from where I'm at, and it was a small gift shop, but they were well stocked. They've done well with their merchandising, and like I said, I bought some stickers, guitar picks. They had some shirts. Then here's kind of the main lobby entrance area. More just really cool rock and roll artifacts through here. To the left, I think I'll look at it here in a moment. There's the main entrance. Over to the left where that couple's looking, those are actually some photos that were taken at that Surf Ballroom show. Kind of a long story with it. You can Google it, but they're the last pictures taken of those performers, and they were taken at the Surf Ballroom. A girl brought her camera in and took pictures, and I don't think she knew what she had, how significant that was till sometime later. What I like is the main drummer on the tour got sick at one point, and you had Ritchie Valens and Buddy Holly filling in on drums for some of the other acts, and I think that's great. And one of those pictures actually shows, I think, Buddy Holly playing drums kind of in the background. Of course, not only did you have those three main performers that everybody hears about, but you had Dion on the tour. And, to me that's a pretty big name. I always liked the Abraham Martin and John song a lot. And some people know this, some people don't. On that particular tour, Buddy Holly's bass player was Waylon Jennings. And how crazy is that? I mean, when you think about all that talent, at a 2,000 person show. And of course, Waylon Jennings wasn't really Waylon Jennings at that point, but that's still pretty incredible. So yeah, you have the signed piano there that I think is kind of neat. But yeah, and Clear Lake is a nice little town. It was just an attractive town. Oh, and forgive me, nobody was in the bathroom, but I thought the bathroom was so freaking perfectly retro too. It just had something old school about it that kind of reminded me of some of the old venues I went to when I was younger. So I did a quick camera sweep of the bathroom, and you'll have to forgive me, my wife did the same in the women's restroom. Again, nobody was in there, but I just thought, I was so impressed with the whole place that I thought that was of interest. So I love the wallpaper and the tiling and all that. And there's a little tribute out front of the Surf Ballroom to the performers that were there that day. And I thought I would mention one of those signs to you here. There's a really nice monument out front with all the names of the three performers and the pilot, Roger Peterson. And it says the above legends played their last concert at the Surf Ballroom, Clear Lake, Iowa, on February 2nd, 1959. Their earthly life tragically ended in a plane crash 5.2 miles northwest of the Mason City Airport, February 3rd, 1959. Their music lives on. I did read that Buddy Holly's widow had a little bit of an issue with the pilot being added. This is a phone. This is a legendary phone. Buddy Holly actually phoned his wife from that payphone, and Ritchie Valens phoned his manager that night of the concert from this payphone, and that's just pretty exciting when you think about that. I wanted to mention too, I was so nervous as I was filming around here that there were a couple of rooms I didn't even go into, so I missed a little bit. But here's just a rough idea of the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa. If you've never been, and if you haven't been, you need to make a point to get down there.